Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi Nidijasam Lakshagunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hearing about Brahman is good. Taking teachings on Brahman is better. Better still is meditating directly upon Brahman. And best of all is that meditation in which the nature of reality stands forth and all doubts and fears die away forever. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So this morning, Sat Day, Sat means truth in Sanskrit or existence. Many Sanskrit words have various definitions, but that's the most prominent one. So we look at Saturday as a day of truth because we all meet together to discuss matters that point or pertain to the truth. Truth itself, as we know, as non-dual and one without a second. It's very difficult to talk about. There's where words fall back in awe, mind falls away, unable to express that one Brahman, that one indivisible presence. But we have all respect and reverence for India, Mother India, and her seers and the darshanas, the clear paths they've set forth for trying to express that inexpressible, to explain the inexplicable. I think when we try and express the inexpressible, it's Brahman, and when we try to explain the inexplicable, it's Maya. So we have these two things that are vying for our attention, you might say, Brahman and it's Maya. In old days, you might call that Purusha and Prakriti, because what is it that covers our perception here on earth in the body? It's name and form, time and space, and causality. And a cover-all term for that would be Prakriti, or nature. So quite often Maya and Prakriti get hooked together like synonymous terms. And of course, they each point to various things. Maya tends to point more towards the cosmic and collective, what befuddles the mind of human beings, ancestors, even the gods and goddesses get talked into long periods of time in form by coming into this world bewitching Maya, as Sri Ramakrishna was to say. And then when we talk about the individual mind and human beings, then we're probably saying that they get enchanted by nature. And that's the part of name and form. Name and form being Maya, nature being Prakriti. We can connect them that way and see how the basic premise behind them is covering power, how this Maya covers Brahman. And in our tradition, we don't go toward a sentient evil. We go towards this ignorance that's in our mind, because everything's projected by the mind. And so it's our own doing. If in the projection that we cast forth with the mind, out of God's mind, into our own individual minds, through the collective minds of the ancestors, what we're doing then is making some errors in perception. And what we project gets taken to be real, as they say in Vedanta. Brahman Satyam, Jagad Mityam. Even Holy Mother used that phrase, and Sri Ramakrishna too, in the Vedanta. Brahman Satyam, that's that word Sat again, where existence is the only reality. And the world is not really real in and of itself, is how you would say that. It's not really illusory, just it's the same way that a reflection of a moon in a mud puddle still has an existence, and it does cause you to look towards the real thing. The Tantrasists in India tend to look at Maya like that, like the God blog I put out, which we'll look at in a couple hours. last week about the covering power as far as the skin of the mango is concerned. It can also project us and until we ripen and can cast it off and be free. So the coming in to name and form, as my teacher Swami Shishanandaji Maharaj used to say, peace and bliss be to him and for him, is to become a Jivan Mukta, that is to discover that you're inherently free, even when you take on these coverings. There's that story about the boy, Make a Good God blog itself, that covered himself with a sheet one night and scared his sister. And so he comes in and the experiment goes off real well, and he's delighted because she's terrified. And then the next day, he does next night, he does the same thing, comes in with a sheet over him, but she's suspicious this time. And she is scared, and too scared to really go up and unmask her brother, but she's beginning to be suspicious. So the third night, of course, she does get up off the bed and say, I see it's you. And she pulls the sheet off and exposes her brother. And so the ruse is over. So that's, you might say, 3 phases of being scared by Maya that has been covered by our own self, as it were. And so in that way, Brahman and his Maya become fit sets, like Purusha and Prakriti, a set of things. You might say Shiva and Shakti could represent somewhat the same thing, although you're getting more interpersonal there with realized beings, whereas Maya is more at the level of cosmic projection, and Prakriti is more at the level of elements, the 5 elements. So if we become a little bit bewitched by the garden as we come into it, because the garden figures into several different religious traditions, then we have to go see the gardeners, Sri Ramakrishna said. So that's what satsang and God blogs and retreats and the seminar we just gave last weekend called The Fire of Yoga are all about. They really give us this opportunity to pull the covering power away and see for certain. And with a group of people attending, it's very powerful, because you need to do it on your own, no doubt. That's true. At some point, you'll have to face off with all, well, quote unquote, your demons, as they say, or those false superimpositions that happen when the soul begins playing around with its powers, that is the mind's powers. So in that way, maybe some questions still linger from that seminar, and satsang is supposed to be about questions. Here I am again with my early preamble, trying to warm you up to the topic on Sat Day, Saturday. So I'm opening the floor at all times. If you want to interrupt me, please don't think that's rude, because I have to fill some time with some things that can perk ideas in our mind or bring back memory of some experiences we've had, both divine and secular, and unfortunately rather demonic, because the divine and the demoniacal has been a topic of another twosome you could talk about that Sri Krishna broaches in the Gita. So we're bound to come up and brush up against some of these ferocious aspects of existence. The wrathful deities in terms of looking inside ourselves in meditation, or the diseases and illnesses, the 6 passions, the 5 fetters, the 9 antarayas, the 5 kleshas. You know the drill. We've studied it through the years that SRV has been in existence. Uncovering is also important in unmasking these usurpers to our attention, as I just said. So we can choose to put our mind on Brahman and water the flowers and not the weeds, or we can brood on the weeds and watch them grow and do nothing about them. But there's a kind of middle ground there in which your contemplations on negative things can turn poison to nectar. that was the first teaching I gave you last week at the seminar, The Fire of Yoga, is how Shiva can turn the poison of relativity into the nectar of non-duality. So if that warms you up a little bit, who's going to be the first to participate, bring forth a query or a question or an experience they've had this week? And in like even from your readings and studies and so forth. Niran John, go ahead.
No, I'll stay, Babaji. Maggie wanted to be here, but she got called in. She had to cover someone for work, so she's doing the service thing. But as during this week, I was reflecting on the Fire of Yoga seminar, and you know, an insight started to form of how I was reflecting on how I could see or leverage the fire of yoga within the tattvas. And I started getting glimpses of how the tattvas they have this power of intelligence and revealing power inside of them that can be leveraged to glean and like just drive insight. And I was just wondering if you can share a little bit of how the fire of yoga can be seen, like that fire can be seen in the tattvas.
Well, I don't know that I would go in that direction with it. To me, the intelligence is always within the sentient being, within the Atman, and our tradition talks about Chidbasa and reflection, how there is light in other things. In insentient things, there's a light shining, like water shines, fire shines. That's where we get our Na Tatra Suryavati Na Chandra Tarakam chant, which is one of the earliest chants we ever memorized in SRV, that there's, you know, the fire, the light of fire and the light of lightning and so forth is not the real light. It's not the real sentient light, but it's this fire in the Atman, or the fire of yoga we're talking about here, that lends that light to other things. And I think it's okay where you're going, because we want to see God in everything. It's just that when we get right down to seeing an object, we, as science has even shown, we look right down to its most minutest parts, and we don't find anything of substance there. That's what's called constant change. And so it would be an interesting study, and it should go on from there after finding the emptiness of objects. It does go on from there in our traditions in India to find out, you know, how intelligence pervades everything. Where is its locus? And we find out it can't be in space. And then find out that it's there even when time goes away, like in deep sleep or in samadhi. And we find out that when name and form go away in a good meditation or death, it's there as an underlying substratum, ground of existence, Meister Eckhart called it. And so we go on searching for it, as Vivekananda said, in all sorts of things. And as we do, we're sort of looking at things and saying, is that you, God? Is that you, God? Is that you, God? And then the practice we're enjoined on to practice is, no, I'm not, no, it's not me, no, it's not me. Keep looking, neti, 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 not this, not this. Until finally the intelligence refines, and that intelligence is in you. You are that. That's why Lord Buddha named himself intelligence. I mean, awakened intelligence, that's what Buddha means. So then at that point, you look at objects and start saying, iti, 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 iti. It is there, it is there, it is there. But you're not looking with the eye of ignorance anymore, with the two eyes of ignorance, you might say. You're looking with the single eye. Utkramantam vyapi astitam vyapi bunjanam, Krishna says in the Gita. The deluded do not see him who comes and goes and stays and remains. like in those that are being born, those who are living, those who are dying. But they see because he's conjoined with the gunas, with Maya, with Prakriti, with nature. Nature's all about gunas, really, to start out with. So since he's covered by that, nobody sees him. That. And so then they open their third eye of wisdom through practices, through grace, through the grace of the Lord teachers, through guidance by dedication to the mother and so forth. And then they see him. Jnana Chakshusha is the final declaration. They open the eye of wisdom and they finally see God in everything. But by that time, they're used to ruses and they're used to covering power. And like you just said so nicely, they're beginning to propitiate and initiate the revelatory power. So that's called Prakasha Shakti. And maybe to make it even clearer, Sri Ramakrishna said there's flint, there's sparks in a flint, and it'll strike those sparks even when it's wet. You could take a flint out of a river, it's been sitting there for 100 years. Even when it's wet, strike that particular stone across another stone and you see sparks fly. But a matchstick, is different. If it's a little wet, it won't strike, but it has that inherent intelligence, that sparking power in it. Just dry it out in the sun and it will spark. So that's the human mind that's gotten wet by the waters of Maya, delusion, illusion, duality, relativity, has gotten soaked by the waters of worldliness. So those kinds of stories taken as true subject and make it clearer to see. And I think one of the lessons, at least along the way, is to find out that it's only by the light of the Atman that all these things shine. Studies are made on it in different indigenous religions of the world, like shamanism and so forth. The risk of those is that they take you towards the object being real or toward the world being real. If they keep it in the realm of symbols and reflections, like India does, then I think it leads to a higher truth. And you won't fall into worshiping an idol or thinking that somehow God is here in this world, which is just a projection of your own mind. Consciousness reflects in things, and the more evolved the thing, the more you get the reflection coming through, the more light comes through. So you could say the same thing about the human being. They're not all enlightened. In fact, most of them aren't, as far as we gauge enlightenment by how the rishis tell us. So what's the matter there? Why isn't the light there that's in the Atman, in the human being, coming forth and showing itself? Why aren't you shining forth that light? Well, some beings manage to open up those channels and let that light into them. And then even their bodies radiate with a kind of light, like Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and so forth. So, to look at things in terms of covering power and revelatory power is very helpful. And in terms of gunas and what covers. These are all Vedantic axioms that make religion and philosophy not only revelatory but delightful to look into and bring true meaning into things that otherwise people are finding no meaning in, but they still try. You see, there's no meaning in your life really, except you, and you projected that life. So take it back, learn your lesson, and maybe don't do it again. Holy Mother said, it's very painful, birth and death. Maybe you never have to go through it again. So a statement like that makes you think, as our founder Lex Hixon said at the end of his life to me, there's much better things to be than a human being. So one would think that an enlightened human being, that Jivan Mukta, as my teacher said, is the real point of being here, that we've come here to become Jivan Muktas, to be living liberated souls. Should a man be reborn? I certainly hope he will not, Vivekananda said, not until he can do so with full consciousness. So that's our challenge. That's the goal, at least penultimately, because maybe a goal beyond that would be a fully realized disembodied state, where not only birth, growth, and death and don't matter to that soul anymore, but name and form doesn't matter to it either. It remains enlightened either way, whether it's in a form or whether it's not in a form. I think Sri Ramakrishna expressed that when he said the highest stage of spirituality in this world is to see God in everything. So he has these certain conclusions that he made in his life that you'll find in the gospel. Like he said once, my most mature opinion is that we start at the Nitya, then we descend to the Lila, and then we return to the Nitya. So for him, it was all Nitya means eternal. Nityo, Nityanam, Chetanas, Chetananam. That's intelligence fully unveiled, fully manifest in the body, the human body even. It's right here in this very body in that sense. Otherwise, it's not here in this body because people aren't finding it or showing it. So, but you come down to the Leela as divine sport. So if you realize the Nitya, then you can manifest it in the Leela. And what he didn't say in that equation is then you can escape the Maya. See, at least the Maya, that's the deluding power of Maya and the distorting power of Maya. The revelatory of Maya, power of Maya, you still might need that. So yes, we just in Vedanta have that Chidabhasa idea that consciousness reflects in things, but it's not the thing. You were talking more from the standpoint of fire of yoga. I think when you speak that way, you're talking about a person who's realized and using the fire of yoga is the flame himself, as we were talking about him or herself. They become this great fire, this flame of the fire of yoga and burn away everything. So they're living in a state of constant illumination. And so that's very rare and very different than the case of either a seeker or a person who's blindsided by nature, by Maya. I suppose you could also say that I remember reading my teacher was saying that the other day, you'll find that as you live your life and seek God among everything, that you'll finally come around to finding out with great delight and surprise that the very thing you've been seeking is yourself. It's yourself in all those things. You reflected, you projected them. So you projected them with your intelligence, right? I mean, some people's intelligence could be skewed or very dim. It could be mean intelligence. That's an expression that people are using their intelligence for gross things and to harm others. So intelligence at its purest, like Buddha intelligence, like the Buddhi that's refined and everything. If you project things from that, then you've got this like Lord Brahma kind of sattvic projection out there that's very beautiful, very benign, very beneficial. That's 3 B's actually that I should remember. But then if not, if you're projecting things from a skewed intelligence, then that intelligence gets in the object too, just like it did with the enlightened soul. But then you see the difference in the manifestation of the thing. There's a different intensity of light, or say absence thereof, or darkness in the projection of a person whose intelligence is mean, skewed, veiled, distorted. But the one intelligence itself stays the same as far as Atman goes. Those ways of looking at things keep us from leaning towards an immature conclusion around the thing. Then we would start to think that God is in anywhere except in us. It's not. If it is, we projected it there, and that's all Vedanta. That's like, it's Advaita 101. If you could make the point. I'm an Advaitist. I'm a Vedantist. I hardly see anything other than my own self. Vivekananda said that I look around everywhere. I don't see anything but my own self. So this is a fully matured soul, spiritually speaking. Naren was the perfect man, or is the perfect man, Sri Ramakrishna said when he saw him. There's the ideal right there. My teacher was saying, if you follow Vivekananda, your troubles are over. He said that once to us. Follow Vivekananda, your troubles are over. Why do we love him? Because he came out of the cage like a lion. That cage of Maya, that is.
Namaste, Babaji.
Yes, I was waiting for you to speak. I saw you getting ready. Namaste to you too, Matt.
Jumping through the screen. I wanted to just go off of Niranjan's question. And as you were talking, I was thinking, we when we observe consciousness reflecting itself, we're saying neti neti because we're seeing it in name and form. And it's like, no, it's not that, it's the reflection that we're seeing, but we're superimposing name and form, and we're thinking that that's Brahman. So the neti neti gets rid of that. And then once we're adept at that, then we can say, like the tantrists do, yes, like that, there it is, there's Brahman. And as I was just taking this all in, something that you had said in a talk a while back has always stood out to me. And it said, consciousness is like sleeping in rocks. It's it's dreaming in plants, partially awake in animals, fully awake in humans, and then illumined in an illumined being. So sort of helpful for me to keep that in mind as I go about daily mundane life in the world, to come back to, as I am constantly being bombarded by Maya, by everywhere. As soon as I walk out the door, I think another thing you said, or your teacher said, is don't leave the door without your Atman. Just remember, as I constantly am leaving and seeing the Maya, to keep that in mind, to keep that tool of neti neti in hand, and then once you can do that, then you recognize the same consciousness with which I'm seeing this is just the same. That's what's being reflected back to me, and that's the formless component of it. That's gets you beyond. So that's kind of what I'm trying to work out right now as I hear you respond to Niranjan.
Right. Well, that's why if we come from the outside in, which we're bound to do when we wake in Maya and with any forgetfulness on our mind, we would have had to practice full remembrance of Brahman for lifetimes previous to retain that. As we were talking last week at the seminar, basically you come through the curtain of nescience and it robs you of your memory. And that's kind of a natural thing as long as you're an infant, but memory comes rushing back in souls like Shankara when they're 6, 8, 10 years old. Jesus, Ram when they're in their teens. I mean, basically, it comes rushing back, and so it shows that this forgetfulness is just got a very short shelf life in the mind if you've prepared yourself. And which then the lesson is in Tibetan Buddhism. So you basically make sure you learn these things in this lifetime, so that they will recur to you later in another existence should you have to take it. And you'll have to take it if you're ignorant, if you haven't realized and woken up. You'll also have to take it when you've gotten illumined, but you still have work to do back on earth, as many souls have shown us. So that's why we start outside with the purificatory practices. We purify body, senses, and our prana, and then we work into our psychic prana, our thoughts, our mind compartment or complex, the antakarna. That's the usual trajectory from outside in. And as we do go through this process, and you can see it, in the Eightfold Path of Buddha, you can see it in the 8 limbs of yoga, you can see it in the Mana Pranaha Sambandha that we've been studying for the last 9 Sundays, as of last Sunday, before the seminar. And you can just see that there's this constant practice that beings are about to, the whole thing really is to remember. Remembrance is half the battle. So it's this forgetfulness or this ignorance that, like the matchstick that's been soaked, you've got to find that sunlight somewhere and dry it out so you can strike memory again of things. So we talked last week about, at the seminar, about Vismriti, how this forgetfulness of mind is a real problem. Things like Alzheimer's are the outer manifestation of that. The real origin to those diseases, all those diseases, is in the mind. That's the teaching Lord Vashishta gave to Ram. We'll look at it in the next set of Sundays. We're looking at Ram's teachings because tomorrow is his birthday. So we have 5 Sundays we're calling April Ram month, you see. So we're going to go through his teachings in Yoga Vashishta and in Vashishta's teachings there, and also in the Adhyatma Ramayana, which is the non-dual version of the great scripture Ramayana. So those kinds of teachings come out in stark relief, pun intended, against these darkening forces of Maya, and light up everything. Light up, O mind, wisdom's shining light, like lamp, and let it burn within with intensity. Kabir sings in one of his songs. So that's our goal and our work, and it usually happens, in this trajectory from outside in until we come to a place where we finally remember where we left off, you might say, and then it all becomes easy at that point. It's a downhill from there on. The uphill is trying to remember your true nature, and if forgetfulness is the only thing in your way, then it's what makes Indian darshanas so free of problems that attend upon other paths and even religions, like original sin and eternal damnation. Those are not acceptable, or they're untenable. They don't even make sense. Karma makes sense, so if the devil's anywhere, it's there, and that karma is your own. So the devil must be in you the same as God is in you. So you find it out, you tear the sheet off that ghost, and then the awakening happens, and it's just a matter of darkness never really had an existence. I just thought it did, and it was all projected by me, but I thought it was projected by someone else, by some other sentient evil or some force that was against me. So, I mean, they talk about self-realization. It's an English expression that came about when the teachings of India came to America. I mean, in their second wave after Vivekananda, the 50s, 60s, so forth, we were seeing them come back, and they were talking so much about self-realization. Well, that's the prize, really. But the method, they skip over that. The method, my teacher said, is much more important. Why, where, when, what, those W questions are all in Maya. But when you start asking who, then you're getting more towards the Atma Vichara, the self is Brahman truth of the whole matter. And so those are 5 W questions, but there's an H question that's in there. How? My teacher was saying a method is very, very important. You don't have a method yet. You're either stumbling over the 4 why, what, where, when, and why, which is time, space, and causation, basically, or you're jumping to who too early. So in between there is how. A method is really important. So he was trying to always talk to us about method, and he would say, as it were, over his shoulder, never mind those advices who say that you don't need to practice. They're wrong. They're pretending. They'll fall. You need to have a method. So say I'm the Atman, at the same time practice it, and don't jump to the highest step and not know what the middle steps are all about. You might need to come back down them again. So it might be said that there's nothing wrong. Actually, it might be necessary that we take ourselves from where we are and move inward. That's what Sri Ramakrishna did. He called it avastas, Avasta, you land lubbers. Those people who are like lost on land, and they haven't discovered water yet. So you take them by phases, Avasta means phase. So you take a person where they are and just start drawing them inward toward the truth. He was a master at that. And he can do it with some advanced people as well as people who are just beginners. So he became known as the master of that particular method. So again, the method would be, take yourself where you are and then just start going forward or going inward, as he would say. And you'll find out that the impurities that are the malas and the various things, the impediments that are in you, go away much quicker as you do this, because it's a matter of remembrance, not a matter of fighting against a black mark on your soul. Those don't exist. The soul doesn't have black marks. It's always perfect. And thou art that. So follow the tradition and do the practice, and you're sure to reach the goal. Milarepa says, you are sure to reach the goal in this life. How about it, Chris? Are you going to pass too, or are we going to hear from you today?
Namaste, Babaji.
Namaste.
Yeah, I have, I guess, kind of a query along the same lines that we've been speaking on today, and from the seminar as well. And it's kind of regarding this Chittavasa and reflected consciousness, and also from the gospel and from our seminar when we were talking about the guru. In the gospel, Sri Ramakrishna says, it is Sat Chidananda that comes to us in the form of the guru. If a man is initiated by a human guru, he will not achieve anything if he regards his guru as mere man. The guru should be regarded as a direct manifestation of God. Only then can the disciple have faith in the mantra given by the guru. Once a man has faith, he achieves all. So seeing the guru as a direct manifestation of God. Is that on a different line than seeing reflected consciousness? This question's kind of subtle, I realize. But should we be seeing the guru differently than we're looking? I don't know. This is kind of hard to word, but
I think I understand already, though, what you're trying to get at. And it does follow up on Aaron John's question. And I was going to go in that direction. So I'm glad that you opened that channel, because I was about to say, and it was beautiful that Matt remembered me quoting my teacher, and when I said, basically, consciousness is sleeping in stalks and stones. It's dreaming in plants, insects, and it's half awake in animals. It's awake in mankind, but it's fully awake and illumined in a realized soul. Not all realized souls become gurus. Teaching's an honorable profession, but teaching tends to have its drawbacks too. But in that, along that line, what I'm trying to say here is that the observer, the seeker, who's an observer, examining snow conditions like an Eskimo does and everything, then basically seeing, oh, what a beautiful tree, what a beautiful sky. Oh, look at the sunset, the moon's full tonight. Seeing various degrees of life and light and things. If that naivete is stripped away, or if that the early urges of nature-based religion, because most religions started out, seeing nature and then projecting God into it when God was not really there. It was just a reflection of God. So that maturation has to come along in the intelligence, as Niran John was inferring. And so that intelligence, like consciousness, seems to grow. But of course, it's always there in full all the time in everything. So it's veiled by the vehicle. The vehicle has limitations. So that's why we're not going to say, like probably many of the religions like Islam and Judaism and so forth, they're not going to say, oh, God's standing there in a man. They're not going to accept that. You see, man's got too many imperfections, too many limitations. And if you lived with your guru, you'd find out that there are a lot of apparent imperfections in that person too. So what you're looking for is something that's, hello. This bird is sitting right here. I just saw God and the bird come to me. All right, so it's the vehicle that foists the limitations over that one consciousness that has no limitations. I'm the fire of yoga that burns away the karma of the being who has no karma. There's a beautiful quote from the Avatud, and several verses that go like that. So what I'm talking around here and not quite getting to then is your question is that when you see Satchidananda comes to you as the guru, then that's a vehicle with the least amount of limitations in it. And the sun of illumination has entered that person, and they're just shining, and darkness didn't have any place to go. It took to its heels. And so like a Vivekananda just walking around as light. We saw that in our founder, Lex Hickson. I mean, everywhere he went, people would change. As soon as he left, they'd go back to who they were. So they would love him when he was there. And when he left, they didn't like him anymore. I saw that happening with people who had light, like my teacher, Swami Sheshananda. You have to become a jeweler to appreciate the value of a diamond. I mean, the jeweler's looking at the diamond, and a person who finds it looks at the diamond and just sees the light in it, right? Doesn't see the worth of it yet. It's a very good analogy. So, most people look at the guru, they can see the light in the guru if they're seekers. but they don't see the worth of it yet. So they're blindsided, by the light, blinded by the light. It's a contradiction. It's even been in a song back in the 60s, I can remember, So that's a problem at the spiritual level. And people will take, and we looked at that chart at the seminar last week, how people take different things to be the Atman. And the Atman's behind all those things, but it's not those things. So you're really short-sighted, and you're doing a disservice to the light that's within you if you have not become a jeweler yet. Jeweler will take that diamond that you give him to sell, and he's not going to get blinded by the light and go, "Ooh, look at that's pretty." Ooh, he's immediately going to put it under his testing apparatus and find out if it's real and how much it's worth, how many carats it has. I mean, he's got this whole art to the thing that you don't have as you walk into him. So those are some inferences from Sri Ramakrishna, some stories he had about that. You take a diamond to an eggplant seller and he'll give you, a few pounds of eggplant for it. He just doesn't know the worth of it. And you don't, and he wants to, take it from you. So that light that gets into more and more illumined beings is a matter of capacity of mind here. It's the mind that's the important thing. There are charismatics out there who have learned how to shine that light for the wrong reasons, and they're attracting people to the personality. And this is one of the things we learn to avoid right away. Because they're there in every religion, in every country, in every walk of life. But in the spiritual venue, you find that there too, charismatics who you have to check them out, with the four great tests. As you're shaking your head, so you don't have to go into that. Basically, knower of Brahman has lives a pure life and doesn't have any desire for you except that you get enlightenment, and knows the essence of the scriptures and can actually, transmit them to you, give you an injection of them. If that teacher has those qualities, fine. But if you test most of the charismatics, they don't have that quality. It's a pretense they're putting on. So then people fall for the light that shines out of those beings. So that inner light is completely of a completely different quality. It's eternal, it's unchanging, it's benign, it confers the highest qualities on people. It destroys their ignorance. Those things you won't find happening in the company of charlatans and pretenders. So you stay with it a little while and you see what the effect is, and then you come up and out of that darkness. That's what the teacher wants for you. The true teacher wants for you. So that's why Satchidananda got into that being and shone with a light, that could remove all imperfections, all darknesses, other places. Like Vivekananda, this that great torch, that eternal flame. That took 700 years rest. He sits like a statue for 700 years, then he comes back to earth, Holy Mother says. So, he's in a state of highest samadhi for the longest period of time, and he wants to be a voice without a form, even when he's here. So, two great miracles in religion I can see over 5,000-10,000 years of history that we have. One is Lord Buddha, how he took Buddhism everywhere without violence, took a religion everywhere without any violence. And Swami Vivekananda is the second, because he caused thousands of people to give up the world. It's hard even to get one person to give up the world. So the Ramakrishna order is just this major spiritual miracle. I hate to use the word, but it's just great. And you can't use the word phenomena either, and really explain it well. But when you see something like that happens, then, and you're in the midst of it, then, there's a sure sign that the light has come to you in the form of a great soul.
Namaste, Babaji. Namaste, Wa.
Right. Namaste.
Thank you very much. I would take the opportunity of these 5 minutes and put forward a practical question related to the mode of meditation that you introduced last weekend, finally, with the steps, because I tried to practice. And could you, so the question was how to, right, so we can take this posture as you described in steps, how we position the body, and then we shall sort of do the concentration step by step. Am I right with that? And then we concentrate on, for example, these qualities like destroying jealousy. So going through these sort of ideas and qualities as we are moving towards. Is that right? Shall we do like that?
That's right. Once you can set yourself, I mean, it follows the basic premises of yoga, even though it's a Buddhist meditation. You can see how Buddhism, Lord Buddha was an Indian man. You can see how Buddhism and Vedanta are so much alike, and their accents even similar, and their teachings similar. But basically, in that meditation, your concern physically is in getting your posture and your breath mastered. It's just like in yoga. So you have the cross-legged position, the lotus or half lotus, and then it might be good even as you got into that to think about the base chakra, the root of the spine, and what passion is there. And, maybe you're having some difficulty getting into that position and holding it. So what is it that's the cause of you not being able to sit still? I mean, what am I, still a child here? Like a child that you can't make it be still. So you have to teach your mind to quiet down and be still. And then, your hands are like, it's called angame jayatva, limbs, they don't know what to do with themselves. So you see that in restless people too, and in children. They just don't have any place to put anything. They're just rajas, it's just all restlessness. So these limbs that are trying to grasp things in adults, and are so busy, in children, finally they just, right on the left, on the lap, and they stay there in that position and hold it. And that corresponds with the next center of meditation, where there's another poison that's going to be neutralized by. So, I mean, I could take you through it all again, and we don't really have the time, but it's probably in your notes, and you can look back on those seminar classes. But yes, you're right. What I'm saying, as we just imagine going through it or envision going through it right now, is that you can wait till you're in the position and then go back and do the purification exercise that's not physical anymore. You've got the physical under wraps. Now you're going in and you're looking at the internal, because now nothing's distracting you. Your arms, your legs, your breathing, everything is balanced. So now those things are out of the way. So you shouldn't have anything getting in the way that's untoward or not under your control. Now you want to get under control these internal qualities, or lack thereof, And so that's about that time, then you're spending more time in the burning pillar meditation, which is what this is called. Finding those problems that are in the central channel leading to the mind. The other things were in the body, keeping you with body consciousness. I mean, it's like, that's why Sri Ramakrishna said, and I quote him from the gospel, Hatha yoga is bad, Raja yoga is good. So you've got to take this Raja yoga, past the physical. Once you get the physical under wraps, and work on the internal, the mind. And that's the central channel leading to the mind. It's just like the spine, physical spine leading to the brain, but the physical spine and the brain are in the body. So you're beginning to have an opening to internal life that you didn't have before, because anyone can exercise and be healthy and eat good food and all that, but then the steps beyond that into yoga are necessary. A lot of people don't have the inclination to go there, or the tendency to seek yet, to seek a higher self, or merge with Brahman, or have darshan with Ishwara. They don't have that leaning yet. These poisons are in the way. So then you neutralize these poisons one by one. You could say that, well, I went and watered the plant and it's good today, but then it didn't rain a couple of days. I didn't water. It's not doing so good. In 2 days, I got to go back and water it again. So the same way, you have to, if these poisons don't go away, you can't give up and just, let the whole thing go, everything go to seed again. You have to keep at it, keep watering these centers, and keep working with these poisons, with the nectars that are there too, and make earth, water, fire, air, and ether work for you. You've been working for them. When you thought you were physical, when you thought you were a body, you thought you were nature, you're actually this bond slave to them. Now they have to turn around and start working for you, because you're the Atman, not the body. So those are the kind of things that can be said about reaching Shinay, a calm, abiding meditation. This burning pillar that will burn away all these problems, not only in the body, but go the full distance and burn them away in the mind too, so that you can be like yourself again. Introduce yourself to yourself and be the self. So very good. That was a good thing to end on, to remind us of the meditation. So Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Joytirgamaya, Mrichorma Amritam Gamaya, Abira Mayeti, Rudrayate, Dakshinamukam, Tenamam Pahinicham, Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real, and lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. O peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat.